Welcome to the MultiCultural MindSet broadcast. Your host is Dr. LaVerne Hanes Collins, a licensed professional counselor, award-winning trainer, and keynote speaker. Dr. Collins is the author of Overlooked: Counselor Insights for the Unspoken Issues in Black American Life. Dr. Collins has also been a featured monthly columnist in the American Counseling Association's Counseling Today magazine with her Honoring Diversity column. Now, here's Dr. Collins.
Hello, and welcome to the Multicultural Mindset, where we challenge assumptions, we lift up untold stories, and we dig into the complex emotional landscape of mental health, identity, and justice. From a mental health perspective, we're looking at issues like race, faith, culture, and trauma. I'm your host, LaVerne Collins, and today we're having a real, raw conversation about something that people feel, things that people feel, but can't always name. I'm calling today's episode The Hidden Weight, because I want to talk about the unspoken stressors that communities of color carry every single day. We don't have a special guest today, and I'm going to approach this a little differently. I'm going to share information, got some visuals, and I just want to share from my heart and have a conversation about many things that are going on in the world, things that have happened in the past week, things that are weighing heavily on the minds of people of color. These aren't hypothetical worries. They're deeply rooted. They're historically informed, and they're tied to real systems, economics, healthcare, family dynamics, cultural loss. And too often they're invisible to those outside of our communities. So today we're unpacking 5 major sources of stress that today, right now, are impacting the mental wellness of Black and Brown people across the country. And we'll talk about how counselors, therapists, and allies can show up in ways that are culturally affirming and responsive, not dismissive or performative. So let's get into it. Number 1, the fear of genocide. Is our survival at risk? There's a very real growing recognition and concern among communities of color that we are living on a genocidal trajectory. Genocide isn't just about mass killings, it's also about systemic elimination. It's about displacement, it's about forced sterilization, it's about cultural erasure, it's about economic strangulation. Examples include mass incarceration, forced sterilizations in immigrant detention centers, and stripping of reproductive rights and voting access. This creates an embodied generational anxiety about community survival. And counselors must take this seriously and not pathologize it. Validate these fears, ask about their impact, and explore what safety looks like for the client. Majority culture clinicians might not recognize these fears without doing the internal work of understanding historical trauma. On my screen now, you see the first of what are 10 stages in a genocidal process. Dr. Gregory Stanton is a professor emeritus at George Mason University. He is a scholar, a former State Department diplomat, and before he retired, he traveled the world responding to genocides in places like Cambodia and Rwanda, learning the patterns of genocide. How does this happen? Dr. Stanton is the founder of Genocide Watch, and he identified 10 characteristics of genocidal patterns, trajectories, and he also identified 12 ways to deny genocide. What you see here is the first stage, classification. The differences between people in this stage are not respected. There's a division of us and them, which can be carried out using stereotypes or simply excluding people who are perceived to be different. That's classification. The second stage is symbolization. This is a visual manifestation of hatred. Jews in Nazi Europe were forced to wear yellow stars to show that they were different. So symbolization can come by symbols worn by oppressors or imposed upon the oppressed. Symbolization. The third stage is discrimination. The dominant group denies the civil rights or even citizenship to identified groups. The 1935 Nuremberg laws stripped Jews of their German citizenship, making it illegal for them to do many jobs or to marry German non-Jews. I'm bringing all of this up because if you see any parallels, perhaps you can understand why fears of whether our survival is at risk abound. Stage number 4, dehumanization. In this stage, those who are perceived as different are treated with no form of human rights or personal dignity. During the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, Tutsis were referred to as cockroaches. In Germany, the Nazis referred to Jews as vermin. The dehumanization and references to people, humans, as less than human makes it easier to devalue the life that they hold. That's dehumanization. Number 5 is organization. You see, genocides are always planned, and they can even be state-sponsored in some ways. Regimes of hatred often train those who go on to carry out the destruction of a people. We see groups, I won't name them, we see them organizing and carrying out destructive orders, destructive plans. Stage 6, polarization. Propaganda begins to be spread by hate groups. The Nazis used one particular newspaper to spread and incite messages of hate about Jewish people. It polarizes. It furthers the separation and classification. The 7th stage is preparation. Perpetrators plan the genocide. They often use euphemisms, such as the Nazis' phrase, the final solution, to cloak their intentions. Euphemisms for change. Euphemisms that suggest that a problem will be solved. The perpetrators create fear of the victim group, suggesting we need to fear them. And they're building up armies and weapons because the victim group has been vilified, treated as villains. The 8th stage is persecution. Victims are identified because of something like their ethnicity or their religion, their race. Death lists are actually drawn up, formally or informally. People were, in Nazi Germany, segregated into ghettos. They were deported. They were starved. Their property was expropriated. And in stage 8, the genocidal massacres begin. The deportations, separating people into places undesirable places, dreaded places. That's persecution. Stage 9 in Dr. Stanton's model is extermination. The hate group murders their identified victims in a deliberate and systematic campaign of violence. Millions of lives are destroyed and changed beyond recognition if they survive through genocide. Note that there are 10 stages, but extermination is not the 10th stage. Denial is the 10th stage. The perpetrators, or even later generations, deny the existence of any crime. Now, I'm not presenting this to instill fear, but clarity. Dr. Stanton notes that the stages do not have to happen in any particular order, and that a nation can be in more than one stage at a time. Dr. Stanton also notes that this is not irreversible. It is reversible with the right kind of peaceable action. When people respond with intentionality and use their voices in safe ways. When media and public officials cry out and call out what they see. Dr. Stanton's work has been publicized around the world. It's been presented to the United Nations. It's been presented here in the United States. Other countries publicly use this model as a warning system, as a way to recognize when things are getting out of control. We don't see this model used as much in the United States. In fact, many of you have probably never seen this model. I'm going to provide a link, though, where you can actually get a PDF of the model, where you can read more about Dr. Stanton and his organization and how he came to this place of developing this particular model. In denial, got several examples here. Denial involves not wanting to call genocide what it is. Denial means that we say that something lacked genocidal intent. That wasn't what was going on. That wasn't what was met. That wasn't what was intended. And you'll see here, I speak about a historian and a broadcaster, David Starkey. He was actually, I believe, in another country, I believe. So anyway, and he claimed that slavery wasn't genocide because so many expletive Blacks survived. That's a denial of genocide. Many ways to deny genocide. We can attack the motivations of the truth tellers, blame the victims as being a disloyal minority. We can emphasize the strangeness of the victims. We can blame out of control forces. We can claim that the victims have really been treated very, very well. We can question and minimize the statistics. We can claim that the deaths were not intentional. They were inadvertent. We didn't mean for them to die in those detainment centers. We can view the violence as a result of some internal conflict within the victim group. We can say that the claim or the acknowledgement of genocide would bring about violence and would harm the process of establishing peace. We can justify the economic interests of these actions. We can call for peace and reconciliation instead of justice. And we can deny the facts that the legal definition of genocide has actually been met. There's a lot. And this is the first of the 5 things talking about this week that are on the minds of people of color. Even without the language to describe it, it's there. What's the second thing on our minds this week? How will we take care of our parents? Elder care anxiety. In many communities of colors, caring for aging parents is a sacred cultural responsibility. And with ongoing threats right now to Medicaid and Social Security, those are systems that are relied on by over 7.2 million older Black and Latinx adults. People are deeply worried about how they will care for their elders. This stress often involves anticipatory grief and guilt, combined with cultural expectations. And many people in our practice communities feel alone in this worry because others don't see it. Counselors need to ask about these responsibilities and avoid assuming that the people in your practice community have the same resources or support as others. Understanding this intergenerational duty through a cultural lens is key to understanding what's on the minds of the people in your practice community and how you can be culturally sensitive, culturally responsible, and culturally intelligent in your responses to folks' worries and to their stressors, the ones they might not even bring up unless you invite the conversation. Number 3 has to do with medical racism and mistrust. Will the doctors even listen to me when I go for an appointment? Listen, medical mistrust is not irrational. It's built on centuries of harm. Think of the Tuskegee experiment to present day disparities in how pain treatment is handled. Healthcare systems have continuously failed communities of color. Black women are 3 times more likely to die from childbirth complications. Native Americans face increased rates of suicide and diabetes. Latinx patients struggle with language barriers and access when it comes to medical care. Counselors need to treat medical mistrust as trauma, not as defiance. Help the people in your practice community develop advocacy skills, honor alternative healing modalities. Majority culture counselors have to ask themselves this question: have I ever feared a doctor visit because of my race? Will the doctors even listen to us? Number 4 on our list this week is the lack of cultural representation. Who's speaking for us? Lack of cultural representation in politics, in media, in healthcare, and in leadership, political leadership, contributes to feelings of invisibility and powerlessness. When people of color are present, they're often expected to be silent or to speak only on race. And this absence in decision-making spaces is exhausting. And majority culture clinicians may not recognize this because their own voices are everywhere. So counselors need to validate clients' feelings of erasure. They need to amplify cultural voices in the room and acknowledge the power of being seen and heard. And number 5, what's on Black and brown minds right now? Collective grief. The question for this week is why? We lost Malcolm Jamal Warner in a tragic drowning accident on Sunday. We learned of it on Monday. For many, Malcolm Jamal Warner represented more than just a TV character or several TV characters. He embodied a positive image of Black masculinity and family that is not uncommon, but that is denied in the public view. And his passing triggers a collective grief. It symbolizes much more than the untimely death of a well-known actor. People of color often grieve public figures when they symbolize stability and identity or joy, because society does not attach stability, identity, or joy to the commonly portrayed public images of communities of color. So the grief is layered with personal and cultural losses. Every generation, from baby boomers to millennials and Gen X, has a place for a Malcolm Jamal Warner or Theo. And counselors must respect and create space for collective, ancestral, and cultural grief. Whether, like me as a baby boomer, you see him as like your child, like your son, whether you see him as like you, watching him through his characters grow and mature over the decades, counselors have to recognize that the grief is real. It's not about celebrity worship. It's about mourning what a person represented to a people who are often underrepresented. So what do we do with all of this? We start by listening deeply, by recognizing that what feels invisible to one person may be overwhelming to another, and by committing to culturally affirming, culturally responsive care that honors lived experience rather than erasing it. If you're a counselor, a mental health professional, a clergy, an educator, a social worker, your cultural humility is your most powerful tool. It's not about having all the answers. It's about creating space for listening. It's about creating space for answers that your practice community members may already carry or may be still looking for. And to everyone listening, let's keep having these conversations. Let's keep telling the truth, because healing only happens when we name what's real and when we fight for what's possible. Healing, not just treatment, not fixing, healing the wounds, acknowledging the fears, lifting voices, getting our heads unburied from the sand. Let's keep telling the truth. Because remember, healing only happens when we name what's real and fight for what's possible. I'm Dr. LaVerne Hanes Collins, and this has been the Multicultural Mindset. Thank you for holding space for me today, a different kind of space than I typically do in the Multicultural Mindset podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for hearing. Thank you for responding and acting. Remember, if this is helpful, if you enjoyed this, please remember to subscribe and to like and to leave a comment. You might even leave a comment about something positive and proactive that you're going to personally do toward your own healing and maybe even your own safety. Remember, stay positive, hold on to joy, keep loving. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, take the time to truly listen. And if you're a professional in this field, keep practicing with empathy, cultural humility, and a multicultural mindset. So long for now.